And while the city has been fortunate to have not experienced flooding in recent months, flooding concerns are still at the top of the city's priority list. Although each municipality in our region has a robust stormwater management program, continued coordinated efforts to address the regional threat to health, safety, and welfare caused by flooding is critical. The City of Highland Park is hosting a follow-up regional flood mitigation meeting wherein various units of government will provide updates on their efforts and the collective opportunity to address this matter through a regional approach. The meeting will be held on Wednesday, October 21st at 6 p.m. and will be held virtually. For the meeting agenda and information on how to join the virtual Zoom meeting, please visit the city's website at cityhpil.com. Our next item is business from the public. This is for citizens wishing to be heard on tonight's agenda or not on tonight's agenda. And I ask the city manager to please share any business from the public that we've received prior to or during this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 11 emails, so I will read them. First one is from Teddy Kirsch. He writes, "Hi, I'm Teddy Kirsch, and I'm a lifelong resident of Highland Park and a registered lobbyist for Harvest Health and Recreation. I want to thank the city for its continued commitment to the well-being of its citizens, as shown by allowing a discussion on adult use cannabis sales, and now by moving forward with a vote on the subject. Bringing this vote directly reflects a desire to expand the welfare of Highland Park residents because it will ideally end with the city fostering a new and vibrant industry. If allowed, like it is in most neighboring communities, it will give us not only an injection of extra tax revenue, but also a novel shopping destination. Due to circumstances presented to all of us, we don't have many options to improve the well-being of our people and to increase the tax base. It's my contention that allowing sales of adult use cannabis will further both of those goals simultaneously and therefore should be allowed here in Highland Park. Thank you." Second email is from Grace Spencer. She writes, "Hi, HP City Council. I will be at softball practice on Tuesday night and not able to attend the City Council meeting. Could someone please read this at the meeting? Thank you, Grace." Hi, my name is Grace Spencer, and I'm a junior at Highland Park High School and live in Highland Park. I'm writing to you to prevent marijuana dispensaries in Highland Park. Throughout my time attending HPHS, I have been approached multiple times to try marijuana. I have seen my classmates high in class, and the more they use, the less motivated they are in school. I've had classmates that have wanted to stop using during school, but were too addicted and not able to stop. I've been concerned for their health and well-being. My friends and I enjoy hanging out at Dunkin' Donuts. I've heard that you may be placing a marijuana dispensary by the Dunkin' Donuts. That is also not far from the school in Walters Field. Having a dispensary by a teen hangout is basically condoning the use of marijuana. Is that the city of HP's intention? Because the message you're sending to teens is that marijuana is not harmful and is okay for teens. Please hear our voices and do not allow any dispensaries in Highland Park. Thank you. Next is from Catherine Spencer. She writes, "Esteemed members of the Highland Park City Council, as a resident and mom of 3 youth, I strongly disagree with having any retail marijuana dispensaries in Highland Park. However, if you move forward with allowing retail marijuana dispensaries, please consider the following. Only allow 1 marijuana dispensary. In your survey of neighboring communities that have marijuana dispensaries, it was stated that it's, quote, too early to draw any conclusions related to direct community impacts, unquote. What's the rush? Start slow with 1 dispensary and see how it goes. Retail marijuana dispensaries currently would be allowed on Park and 41 by Dunkin' Donuts, CVS, and Starbucks. Please do not allow dispensaries by retail stores, especially ones that are particularly attractive to children and youth. Include parks on the list of areas that dispensaries must be 1,000 feet away from. Clarifying the ordinance that you will not allow on-site consumption. Allowing on-site consumption is inviting people to ingest marijuana and then drive while high. This concerns me, especially as a mom of 2 teen drivers. Limit the hours of operation to 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. This will make it harder for, quote, party runs to occur in the later evening. Thank you, Catherine Spencer. Next email My name is Olivia Alvarez, and I'm a Highland Park High School student. What I really like about Highland Park are the relationships and support this community provides, and I'm concerned that allowing retail marijuana sales might have a negative impact. Research shows that marijuana is addictive and harmful. In Washington, when marijuana sales were legalized, the percentage of traffic deaths related to marijuana more than doubled. As a teen in our community, I can share that many students already have access to marijuana and vapes through friends and older siblings and use them carelessly on school property. I see the impacts it has on their schoolwork, grades, relationships, safety, and more. I fear that opening stores will only broaden their access and reassure them that using marijuana is safe. Sure, no one has died directly from marijuana usage, but it affects our future in so many ways. I hope you understand that seeing advertisements will not only encourage more use and perception of wrongness will only decrease. I fear for the safety and health of my friends and peers. Thank you for considering these facts and determining what is right for our community. Next is from Mark Portman. This is regarding Move HP. Mr. Portman writes, "We are confused. What's the message that City Council is trying to achieve for Highland Park? Are we trying to be an eco-green tree city, a Move HP city, or both? If you are trying to achieve both, you must decide how to resolve the unavoidable conflicts that will arise if you implement Move HP. We've reviewed the Move HP plan, and nowhere in that plan is there a commitment to do no harm to the environment. Does an enlightened and progressive city willingly destroy trees? Does an enlightened and progressive city install impervious sidewalks, exasperating flooding problems? Protecting the environment can not only be practiced on a macro level, lot level decisions are just as important. We don't pretend we'll ever understand the council's preoccupation with cyclists and sidewalks. Nevertheless, we believe the city can successfully implement a Move HP plan, but only if it first acknowledges it will take all necessary steps to protect the environment when implementing Move HP. Will the council acknowledge its highest priorities is to protect the environment? If so, make this clear by amending the Move HP document. The citizens of HP expect no less from our leaders." So the next email is from Alex Lerman. "As a proud member of the Highland Park community, I support legal sales of adult use cannabis in Highland Park." Next email is from Lauren Hansen. She writes, "Thank you for all the work you do for the city of Highland Park," and then submitted these comments on behalf of Stand Strong Coalition. "On behalf of Stand Strong Coalition, our neighboring community coalition based in Lincolnshire, Illinois, would like to confirm and support the concerns brought up by community, the anti-drug, CTAD, and Delta students regarding the discussion to allow retail marijuana sales in the city. Studies have recently found a 25% increase in cannabis use disorder among 12 to 17-year-olds in recreational legal states. Dispensaries near youth-saturated areas like Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts reduce the perception of risk of marijuana use. For the overall health and wellness of our youth, we ask the City Council to not approve permits for retail stores in Highland Park. Thank you for all of your work on behalf of the beautiful city of Highland Park." The next email is from Kim Radoy. She writes, "As a mom and substance abuse educator for 20 years who is focused on preventing teen drug use, I am against allowing marijuana dispensaries in town. I realize there are already plans to move forward with allowing up to 8 dispensaries in addition to the possibility of on-site consumption. This action will not add any value to an already robust and flourishing town and will very likely send the message to teens that marijuana is not risky and okay. Today's marijuana is much stronger than in years past, in many cases 10 times more potent for flower with 30% THC and over 90% THC in concentrated form. Does the council really want this drug sold right in town in potentially 8 separate locations? I ask council to consider protecting the health and safety of young people first by saying no to the empty promises from the marijuana companies that have purported monies will flood in from pot sales. Even if that were the case, the cost to society is far greater than any potential revenue. Our teens are watching us. We need to attract businesses that add a positive value and not a negative drain. The next email is from Barbara Denecker, Executive Director of Community Anti-Drug Coalition, or CTAD. She writes, because CTAD's mission is to reduce marijuana use among youth in our community, the information below is to provide insight on how local marijuana stores may impact youth. A recent study showed that young people living near dispensaries are more likely to use marijuana, use it more often, and have a more favorable attitude about marijuana. While the law also requires age verification to purchase alcohol, tobacco, and vapes, youth still obtain them through older friends, siblings, asking an adult to purchase it, using a fake ID, and other creative ways. They could do so for marijuana as well. A District 113 high school student reported buying partially used THC cartridges from college students. Many products, particularly edibles and vapes, have names and packaging that appeal to both teens and young children who may mistake the items for candy. The marijuana store in Mundelein sells marijuana popsicles, chocolate-covered mangoes, and quote, peanut butter Buddha chocolate. More examples attached. Because of state law, the city would not be able to regulate the type of products sold. We remain available to the council to provide any additional information. So two more, Mayor. The next one is from Vicky Sabat, S-O-B-O-T. She writes, I am a Highland Park high school student and live in Highland Park. One thing I really like about Highland Park is how safe the community feels. I'm concerned that allowing retail marijuana sales might impact this. Research shows that about 700,000 people are arrested for marijuana-related charges annually. Not only this, but the chances of becoming dependent on marijuana can be up to 50% for some users. As a teen in our community, I can also share that there is an ongoing drug problem at Highland Park and Deerfield High School. The other day, I went to Sunset Park and over 20 Deerfield high schoolers came to smoke and get high around 8 at night. These stores would not only add to the problem and increase the number of drug users, but risk the safety of those in the community. Thank you for considering these facts and determining what is right for our community. And then the next email is from Yaneli Betancourt. My name is Yaneli. I am a Highland Park High School student and live in Highland Park. One thing I really like about Highland Park is that we have a great community that is very involved. I'm concerned that allowing retail marijuana sales might impact this. Research shows that Massachusetts handicap discrimination law protects an employee that uses marijuana to treat a, quote, debilitating medical condition, end quote, and has an MA medical marijuana card. The National Survey on Drug Use and Health found that 28% of women living in low-income areas tested positive for marijuana use during pregnancy. As a teen in our community, I can also share that this is going to affect them from their parents not allowing them to play outside due to them being scared will be walking out under the influence of marijuana. Thank you for considering these facts and determining what is right for our community. And that concludes the emails to the city, Mayor. And there's no one at City Hall at this time from the public.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate all these comments. And I just want to give a shout out to our high schoolers for their advocacy, always so supportive of students who are taking the initiative and getting involved in their community. So I want to thank those guys in particular for their comments. I'm now seeking a motion to approve items 1 through 7, which have been grouped together for omnibus consideration. May I have a motion on items 1 through 7?
So moved.
I think one of them is as amended, the Move HP plan, number 6.
It is.
Okay. So who made the motion and do you have that?
I did, and I will, and number 6 would be as amended.
I'll
Okay.
second that motion.
Any comments or questions on items 1 through 7?
Mayor, I'll just note for public information, we did receive some recommended changes from city council members. So we have actually 2 files that are posted to the agenda. One is the original file that was posted on Thursday, and then an amended file with track changes that's labeled revised. So that likewise is on the agenda for public review.
Great, thank you. Okay, will the clerk please call the vote on items 1 through 7?
Councilman Stolberg,
Aye.
Councilwoman Stone,
Aye.
Councilman Kaufman,
Aye.
Councilman Bloomberg,
Aye.
Councilman Noble,
Aye.
Councilman Holloman,
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays. Items 1 through 7 have been approved. Item 8, an ordinance amending the City of Highland Park zoning code of 1997 as amended regarding conditional use permits for adult use cannabis dispensaries. How does this group want to proceed? I feel like we've had many presentations, significant data and information provided in tonight's agenda packet. Happy to entertain comments or go straight to a motion. What are people's thoughts?
I'd go straight to a motion. I'll make the motion to approve.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay. Any comments, questions, concerns on the motion on item 8? Councilman Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I do have some concerns about this motion. I do, as we've talked about before, I do favor legalization of and decriminalization of cannabis, but I'm concerned about the potential impact and the potential unknown impact of allowing a recreational dispensary in our community. Some of the communities surveyed, or a number of them, felt that it was too early for them to realize what the impact is of their having recreational dispensaries. And I know Mundelein had some parking and traffic issues. And I'm concerned about the potential unintended consequences to health and safety of our residents. And I do take to heart very much so. I'd also, like the mayor, applaud our high school students for getting involved, for expressing their views. It's not easy to do that sometimes. Sometimes it may not be a very popular view. So I do take to heart their concerns, as well as CTAG's concerns and the concerns of other groups about the potential stress to health and safety of not only students, but other residents in the community, and the potential risks. I think it's also a particularly challenging time where we have other threats to health and safety during the pandemic. And I think that also is creating additional pressure on our police and fire departments. So I would hate to see that become an even greater stress on our public safety. And so I have some grave concerns about this ordinance.
Thanks, Councilman Kaufman. Councilman Bloomberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what Councilman Kaufman has said. I think I certainly agree with the decriminalization of marijuana. I think that's a very important step, and I support that. My concerns mirror Councilman Kaufman's, which is the issue of bringing a dispensary into the community. At the outset of the conversation many months ago, before it was first considered by the Plan Commission, we talked about the need to have information about how dispensaries are going to function in the world. And there really isn't a lot of information about how that's going to occur in communities similar to Highland Park and around the country. So it isn't a question for me about the health issues, although I am concerned about that. I think there has been very little research on that, but that's not really the driving force for me. For me, the driving force is what a dispensary physically is going to do and the impact that that is going to have upon the city of Highland Park in terms of whether that will bring traffic issues, criminal issues. We have a medical marijuana dispensary that has generally functioned pretty well within the limited community that it serves in the location that it exists, but even that has faced some recent issues that were unanticipated despite having really excellent security. So until that kind of information becomes more determinative, I'm not willing to approve having a recreational dispensary in Highland Park.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councilman Stolberg.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, I was concerned about this when it was first brought to us. I've been involved in all of the meetings at the PDC. Honestly, I absolutely applaud the several high school students who took the time and eloquently expressed their opinions. I will say that in 2 PDC meetings, I was a little surprised that we didn't have more comment one way or the other from the general public. I think in total, maybe we had about a dozen comments throughout the meetings. While the PDC has a recommendation in front of us, I am comfortable with the security aspects and the ability to approve this. However, we do have one medicinal license holder in Highland Park, and I stated publicly at the PDC meeting when they asked about other zoning districts that I would not be in favor of that. It is currently before us only in reference to the Briargate district, where the current medicinal use is and has been running. The other thing that is in the recommendation this evening is 1,000 feet between dispensaries. I think one of the owners, the residents commented during the public comment section about limiting the amount of the dispensaries at 1,000 feet in between and the allowable area in the Briargate zoning district. That would allow up to 8, I believe. The discussion was before the PDC about making it 1,500 feet, which would allow 5. I know we had an email from a resident saying, we don't want to turn this into Cannabis Row, and I agree with that. I think the medicinal license holder has proven responsible, has proven that they take it seriously. I have done a little research, and the idea of an underage person going in here and submitting a driver's license and a phone number and everything else is a little bit different than a liquor store. The security is more apropos to a pharmacy than a liquor store. So I would be in favor of this, but I would like to see it limited to one location in Briargate at the time. And as we've said before, as we evolve and get more history and data, let's walk before we run. In general, I'm supportive of it, but I'd like to see it limited to one in the Briargate district for the moment. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Stone and then Councilman Noble.
Thank you. I'm supportive of this, as I've said before. This is legal in Illinois, so people are going to be using it. If they're going to be using it, they should be able to get it safely. So I'm okay with having some number of dispensaries here. I think we've chosen a good area of town to put the dispensaries, that it's not easily accessible to people in, it's not in the downtown area, it's not near schools. I appreciate what some of the high school students have said, and I think that the location that we've chosen is away from schools for that reason. And as Councilman Stolberg said, you can't just walk in. You need an ID. You need to show that you're of age in order to purchase anything at these dispensaries. I think that there are protocols in place that will keep that to a minimum, keep it safe, and so I'm in favor of this.
Thank you. Councilman Noble.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilwoman Stone. There isn't much more to add. She said pretty much how I feel about it. As far as the number of dispensaries, we'd be lucky if we even got another one. There are 175 licenses that are about to be given out, and they are not coming up to Highland Park. They are going to neighborhoods of need and neighborhoods of color. It's going to be a very long time before we see another application come up here. Highwood, it would probably get one before we would. And they're ready to take one. So I called the motion, and I'm comfortable with where we're at. And I do echo, I appreciate all the input. I appreciate that students are active in our process, and I appreciate what they had to say. I did respectfully disagree with their arguments, but I loved hearing from them.
Thank you.
Mayor, I
Councilman
raised my
Holliday, I
hand.
can't see you, but it looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, and I won't belabor the point, but I did want to echo the comments from Councilman Stone and Councilman Noble. Appreciate that very much. I have a little problem with limiting to a single license at this point, because that seems to me like unfair business practices to say that only this business could have a license. So I'd like to see us go ahead with the proposal as presented.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion, we have a second, And Councilman Stolberg, it sounded as if you were heading towards limiting to just one. Didn't know if you wanted to propose an amendment, but if you don't, we'll go ahead and
I would
take the
make-
motion as it is on the table.
I would if you would give me a chance, and I appreciate that. Councilman Holloman, I understand your point, and we don't want to make it look like we're being favorites to one particular business. The recommendation from the PDC was 1,000 feet apart, limiting it to 8. The other point of discussion that was talked about for a while was 1,500 feet apart, thus limiting it to 5. At least that creates some more distance. To Councilman Noble's point, whether they come up here or not, that is to be determined, but I don't know if it's acceptable to the motion maker or the second to make it 1,500 feet between, and it was between 4 and 5, and we could talk to, I don't know if Joel is on the call with the exact layout of the map, but I would certainly be much more comfortable. While they may not come here, what if they do? I don't want to see it turn into Cannabis Row. That's not the intent of this or the spirit of it. Would we be good with limiting it to 1,500 feet and 4 or 5, whatever the map allows?
Councilman Noble.
I'd be comfortable in amending it if it's more comfortable to Councilman Stolberg. Like I said, they're not coming up here, but I like to take a very long-term view on things. And if it gives some security to future councils, sure. And it can always be amended, and it may be amended to different areas. At that point, there can be a whole big open discussion. But yeah, I would go to the 1,500 and the 5 and I would change my motion to as amended. Does that work for,
No, it was Councilman Holloman who was the
I
seconder.
was going to ask Corporation Council if I could even do that. Okay.
Councilwoman Stone, were you the seconder?
I was.
Okay.
And I'm good with that as well. I know Councilman Stolberg mentioned to me that there was that conversation regarding the 1,500 versus the 1,000. And 5, just given the size of the area that we're considering, 5 seems to be more proportional to that area than 8. So
I always think about 3 as long as I'm asking. I mean, I just threw out what was discussed. I would like to put a reasonable limit, so I didn't mean to interrupt you, Councilman Stone. I'm sorry.
Well, but I think the 1,500 feet makes sense because I think it's just, it gives a better proportion to that zoning district. If we were to include other zoning districts later, that would be a different discussion. So I'm good with that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this item? So as amended, it would be 4 or 5, and it would be 1,500 feet between dispensaries with the zoning as originally outlined in the packet, as approved by the PDC. Okay. Will the clerk please call Councilman Stone.
I just want to ask one question. There was an error in the packet regarding the east and the west. Did that get fixed?
It's fixed.
Okay.
Yes,
thank you.
it was.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilman Stolberg,
Aye.
Councilwoman Stone,
Aye.
Councilman Kaufman,
No.
Councilman Bloomberg,
No.
Councilman Noble,
Aye.
Councilman Holloman,
Aye.
Mayor Rotary.
No. 4 ayes, 3 nays, and item 8 as amended is passed. Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, Corporation Council.
I just want to make it clear, since there wasn't a presentation, I want to make clear to whoever is listening that what the city council did tonight is approve an enabling ordinance in its zoning code. It did not, there is not an application for a specific dispensary before the city council. If and when one is, that will, based on the action the council took tonight, will be required to go through a special use process with a public hearing before the Plan Commission and then an ultimate vote by the city council.
Terrific. Thank you. Councilman Stone and then Councilman Stolberg.
Thank you. I had asked the city manager this question earlier about, I know that we have the ability to impose a tax at the city level on this, and I wanted to see where that stands.
Thank you, Councilwoman Stone. So that's the next policy question. Just want to get feedback from the city council this evening, and then we can prepare an ordinance for formal consideration at the next meeting. So state law does allow municipalities to impose up to a 3% tax for the retail sales of adult use cannabis in 0.25% increments. So it would be our recommendation to tax up to the limit, 3%, which is comparable to what many of our neighboring communities have done as well that have passed similar ordinances.
So at this point, you're just sort of seeking consensus from this group?
And we will bring forward then a formal ordinance for consideration at the next meeting.
And that will not require plan commission input. That's
Right.
that the council can consider directly.
Sounds good. Okay. Councilman Stolberg?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing, as I'm looking at the zoning map in the packet, and even though we approved 1,500 feet and 5 of them, the south, maybe 2,500 or 3,000 feet is this narrow ComEd zone. So I don't really think it's conceivable or practical for anything to go there. So if you take that out of the equation, I think we're really looking at, in a perfect world, if the licenses were to come, to have 3 in that area. The second question I asked, and I think Corporation Council brought up at the last meeting, and I think there was a resident who asked, and Steve, maybe you could clarify definitively, this ordinance by default will not permit consumption on site. We would actually have to take action to allow that to happen, and that is not what we're doing. So I want to make, at least for the residents who are opposed to that, clarification that there will be no consumption on site based on the ordinance that we just had.
You stated that exactly correctly, Councilman Stolberg. To repeat, unless and until the city takes affirmative action to allow consumption on site will be prohibited.
Okie doke. Great.
One other thing, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Director.
So in terms of the area that Councilmember Stolberg was referring to, he's right. The area does extend down quite far in that sliver down there toward the southern part of the city. And so when we were talking about the area in which these uses could be permitted at the Plan Commission, I just want to make clear to the council, the area we were referring to excluded that area already in terms of our calculation. So it's about 8,000 feet long. If you didn't exclude that, it would be about 11,500. But the practicality of locating in that sliver there is you know, it really precludes it. So I just wanted to be clear about that. That's all.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Noble. You don't need to say anything? Okay. Continuing on, is there any business from the council?
Mayor, I just want to make sure we do have consensus to move forward, then bring forward an ordinance at 3%.
I see at least 4 people nodding their heads.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Business from city staff, 3rd quarter major projects update.
Yeah.
Oh, what a quarter it's been.
So major projects as well as a couple of other reports. So I'll just touch upon a couple of things. So we are 7 months in this pandemic. Just want to give an update on several matters as it pertains to managing our operations in this pandemic. We continue to work very, very closely with our government partners, Lake County, the state, local businesses, community partners, providing them information, sharing resources in order to best serve and manage our community during this challenging time. Can't stress enough the importance of individuals signing up for our e-news if they have not signed up already. We are issuing e-news twice a week and more frequently if needed, sharing information from the city as well as from partner agencies. We're updating our website daily, so people can go to our website as kind of a one-stop shop for information. And then we are on social media, so please stay in communication with us. We have issued more than 50 permits for use of the city's right-of-way. This is primarily for our retailers as well as fitness facilities, so they can continue to best serve the public during this pandemic. And most importantly, we're really working one-on-one with businesses just to understand their needs, since everyone is very unique, and working with them and supporting them to the greatest extent possible. One major change that I just want to bring to the council's attention, we are in final stages of a review for an amended site plan impacting the Ravinia district, specifically the closure of Roger Williams. So we are working with all the restaurants in that area. The amended site plan would entail lifting the road closure as of Monday morning or Monday morning, that would take effect. So we would have 1 lane of traffic on either direction along Roger Williams. Ravinia Brewing and BWB would continue to provide service to the public from a tent that would be directly in front of their restaurant. And then we've worked very closely with the other restaurants so they can continue to provide service to the public, either through outdoor dining or enhanced curbside pickup. So we will monitor that site plan just to make sure that it works from a safety and operational perspective, and then extend that if it deems favorable. So we'll certainly keep the city council apprised of that. Our administrative buildings remain closed to the public for walk-in traffic, but we are working 24/7. We conduct all of the service that we're providing to the public primarily through virtual means, through website. If individuals do need to meet with us one-on-one, certainly we will make ourselves available. But we are taking these efforts really for the best protection of the public as well as our employees. And again, trying to minimize the spread of this virus, which everyone realizes now we've seen some increased cases, specifically in Illinois and through the area. One of the major projects this year is the Crossroads Business District sub-area plan. The sub-area plan is really going to serve as a playbook for us for future development or revitalization in that area. This area specifically includes the property along Skokie Valley Road from north of Clavee to Lake Cook Road. And so that planning would entail a review of existing conditions analysis, review of land uses, zoning, transportation, access, marketing trends, and conditions. So we have 4 meetings that we have set up so we can get feedback from the public about this corridor plan. So they range from October 20th to October 30th. We have 2 meetings that are dedicated specifically to residents. We're sending direct mail to residents in the immediate area, but anyone in the community is welcome to attend one of these meetings. We have a meeting specifically set up with developers to get their feedback on market trends and opportunities in terms of revitalization of the corridor area, and then a meeting targeted for businesses and property owners. So we will be issuing a media release specifically with these dates, and again, encouraging the public to participate in this process. We couldn't coordinate National Night Out this year in August. This is a police department initiative, but the national event was rescheduled to October 6th, and we partnered with Moraine Township. This was Chief Jogman's idea to not only engage with the community, but also provide a very important service and support to our community, and that's through a collection program to support the township pantry. And so special thanks to all the residents who participated. We had over 100 bags of food and items that were donated to the pantry. So special thanks to all those residents that participated, and specifically to our police department. Just a reminder to the public that the census deadline is October 31st. So I know everyone that I'm looking at here has completed the census, but we are encouraging the public to check with your neighbors, your employees, your colleagues, anyone that you interact with, and please make sure that they complete the census questionnaire. We have a link on our website that would get them directly to that questionnaire. And then finally, the third quarter major projects is included in the packet. Similar to previous reports, we have updated major changes in red so you can easily identify the latest updates this past quarter, and we're happy to entertain any questions you may have at this time.
Terrific. Thank you. Councilman Kaufman.
Thank you. I just heard this, and I haven't read it, but I heard there's a Supreme Court decision out today. So I don't want to speak to it because I haven't read it. I don't want to speak to it late, but that has curtailed the date by which the census will be open. And so I've heard that it may still be open, but it's closing fast. That's all I know. I don't want to misstate it, but I just did want to mention it.
We'll check on that.
Corporation Counsel looks like he wants to say.
No, Dan, I mean, Councilman Kaufman summarized it right. It's confusing as to what the date is. I will tell you that. I read it.
So as with registering to vote, don't delay, fill out your census form. Okay, well, thank you, Geeta. Anything else for this city council meeting? I am seeking a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the vote for the motion to adjourn?
Councilman Stolberg,
His lips are moving, but he's on mute.
Sorry.
Councilman Stone,
Aye.
Councilman Kaufman,
Aye.
Councilman Bloomberg,
Aye.
Councilman Noble,
Aye.
Councilman Holloman,
Aye.
Mayor Rotary.
Aye, we stand adjourned and now going to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for the City of Highland Park, Illinois, October 13th, 2020. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Stolberg,
Here, sorry.
Councilwoman Stone.
Here.
Councilman Kaufman,
Here.
Councilman Bloomberg,
Here.
Councilman Noble,
Here.
Councilman Holloman,
Here.
Mayor Rotary.
Here, we have a quorum. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 29th, 2020 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the vote on the approval of the minutes?
Councilman Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilwoman Stone.
Aye.
Councilman Kaufman,
Aye.
Councilman Bloomberg,
Aye.
Councilman Noble,
Aye.
Councilman Holloman,
Aye.
Mayor Rotary.
Aye. 7-0, the minutes are approved. Continuing on with our scheduled business. We continue on with our 2020 budget workshop. City Manager Newkirk will provide introductory comments and an overview of the presentations planned at tonight's budget workshop. And then each department director, as noted, will present highlights of Department 2021 objectives and their proposed department budget. And tonight we will be hearing from the City Manager's Office, the Finance Department, Police Department, Fire Department, Public Works, and Community Development.
Thank you, Mayor. So certainly, as the City Council is well aware, our budget document is our principal planning document, guiding our goals and objectives, our priorities, our goals, sets forth our mission for the upcoming fiscal year and long term. So as the mayor noted, this evening's budget workshop will entail presentations by all of our department directors. I'd like to just give a couple of highlights. The council is certainly well aware of this information, but really for public information. And as always, we welcome questions and feedback from the public. As reported at the last workshop, we have presented a balanced operating budget with operating revenues expected to exceed operating expenditures. The budget was prepared based on policy feedback from the mayor and council, from the public, and really I just want to congratulate and thank our exceptional staff. All of our department directors are here this evening, as well as many division managers, but our supervisors and really all employees in the organization are involved in the budget process because we welcome everyone's feedback in order to continue to best manage our expenses and take a look at our revenue and our plans and objectives. The budget is based on the foundation of the 4 priorities that the City Council has adopted. So they are fiscal stability, public safety, infrastructure investment, and community vibrancy. And whenever we look at our goals and objectives and initiatives, we just make sure that they align based on the foundation of the city's mission. And so that mission has been affirmed by the City Council to drive our activities for fiscal year 21. And that's to provide high quality municipal services in an efficient and fiscally responsible manner through effective, transparent, and collaborative governance. Our property taxes are approximately 7% of a property owner's last tax bill. So that's so incredibly important, and that's an important policy decision that the City Council has established, and we have embraced as staff, trying to keep our property taxes as low as possible. So what we can control, we have kept that to really 7 cents on the dollar for the public, which really speaks volume, I think, of the financial policies and the operation of this organization. We've done that because I think overall we've done a good job of diversifying our revenue stream, managing our expenses, and just really overall managing the budget, as well as looking in terms of long-term goals and objectives. The fiscal year 21 budget does include a tax levy increase of 1.1 million, but that's only to offset the loss of the vehicle sticker sales and enforcement that we had, which we took a loss on in fiscal year 20, but we are recommending that it be added for fiscal year 21. So the impact to the city is really a net zero impact in terms of financial gain, but we are recommending that be added to the property tax levy. Otherwise, there are no fee increases, no tax increases, or anything else of that nature recommended in the proposed budget. Again, understanding that this is a challenging economic time for everyone in the area. The budget document details over 13 million of 2021 capital improvements, with almost 10 million dedicated towards infrastructure investment. So a couple of key projects, just want to make sure we bring to the public's attention, is the grant-funded Clavee Road improvements, which are planned. This project is planned to be let in January 2021. A detailed overview of that project can be found on our website. And then we've talked at great length about the Central Avenue East-South parking lot reconstruction. In 2021, we will continue with testing and assessment of body-worn cameras for our police officers. And we have funds budgeted starting in fiscal year 22, at an estimated amount of $214,000 for a total of $915,000 for our investment to outfit our entire police department with body-worn cameras. So that would be over a 9-year period. In terms of facilities, the budget includes continuing to work on planning and engineering for the redevelopment of the Ravinia Fire Station in 21, with construction starting in 22. So we have $7.8 million towards that public safety facility project. And then City Council, we've prioritized the senior center in terms of the next major public facility project. So we have $3 million in 2024, with that transition starting in 23. We are staffed at 250 full-time equivalent employees. This represents about a 10% reduction of our workforce, or 27 FTEs. And this is really as a result of COVID's impact on our revenue and our response to manage our expenses. So that's one of many areas where we have reduced significantly in terms of our budget. Before we continue with the department presentations, we are seeking policy feedback on a possible change to our small business facade improvement grant program. We have a current program that is available to small businesses. It consists of a 50-50 match up to $5,000 for small businesses. So this could be a new business coming in, or it could be an existing business that wants to change their awning or landscaping, anything in terms of their facade. So there are really 3 policy questions that we are seeking feedback on. So the first one is there an interest in expanding this program beyond facade that would include interior renovations or COVID-related operational improvements, such as purchasing heaters, tents, making HVAC improvements to improve the air quality of the business. Many businesses have made investments in their sites to have touchless plumbing fixtures, just to keep their environments clean. So the first policy question is there an interest in expanding the facade program to include interior renovations and COVID-related expenses? If so, one funding option that we could pursue is the Environmental Sustainability Fund. This fund accounts for revenue sources and expenditures dedicated to the implementation of the city's sustainability plan. We have planned expenditures for this fund, but there is a balance of about $432,000, which we are anticipating for the end of this year. So there's fund balance that we could use if the council so chooses towards very specific objectives. And so you can set forth that policy for 2021 and limit it just to that, to support small business grants, or proceed in any other policy determination that you deem appropriate. If there's not an interest in using the Environmental Sustainability Fund, we are seeking policy feedback if you want to look at further drawdowns of the general fund, or if you'd like us to go back and take a look at further cuts out of our operations, where we could certainly do that and come back to you with a couple of options in that regard. And then the last policy question is, currently this program provides for up to a $5,000 grant. That's a 50-50 match. So are you interested in still $5,000, or would you like us to take a look at increased funding and make that available to businesses?
So I have a couple of questions, and I think it's important to kind of give some context for why we would be looking at reappropriating funds potentially from a sustainability fund to private businesses. But I think it's important to note that a lot of the revenue that we count on primarily for the general fund is derived from sales tax revenues, food and beverage purchases. Small businesses help us relieve the property tax burden on our residents. So the question is, for every dollar that's sort of put in as an incentive, is there a multiplier? Do we get 5 back? Do we get 7 back? Is this something that sort of you kind of seed the situation, given that we're in these extreme times, in an effort to sort of support our local economy, support the vibrancy in our downtown, support the jobs that these places provide, support these local businesses who have been present in some cases for decades. So I just think it's important to put that context in there. I appreciate the thought that's coming through this. I would have huge concerns about further drawdowns on our general fund because I'm already concerned about our general fund and whether we can sustain that balanced fund going forward, given all that is dependent on those dollars, whether it's for public safety or what have you. You know, we need those dollars for the operations of the city of Highland Park. And so to, you know, the operations funds, I just think, you know, at some point we need to figure out the cost benefit of putting funds in and then what comes out. I, for one, would be supportive. I recognize, coming from originally the Environmental Commission, the importance of supporting sustainability. And I'm so appreciative of the renewables project, basically, which is where these dollars have come from. But that being said, we've made several changes to many policies because we are in a national crisis. And that being said, I don't see this as a permanent change, but I do see it as an opportunity to free up cash to help these businesses. We all know that throughout the country, not just Highland Park, not just the northern suburbs, several small businesses are really feeling the squeeze. And I think it's important for all of us to recognize the long view and be here to support our businesses. I saw Councilman Noble's hand was up next, and then Councilman Stone.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for this important perspective. I'll take it and break it apart. And I may add to some of the things that City Manager Newkirk handed us. I agree with you. I would not draw down our funds. I do think that the program providing the $5,000 match, if we could increase it, if we could figure out a way to afford it, great. I think staff needs to go back and crunch the numbers for us and see if that we could, based on the number of businesses that might have interest. We have seen over the years an unbelievable amount of businesses that are here and successful who have participated in it, and they've remained in our community. I think those are the same businesses that might say, hey, I could use this, both restaurants and retail businesses. So I am in favor of it. One of the things that I would like to explore also is eliminating Visit Lake County, which was $12,500, which would ease the burden on taking some of the money out of the sustainability fund, which I know is important, but the sustainability of our businesses is just as important. If we do not have those businesses, we not only do we lose sales tax revenue, we lose vibrancy in our community. And you know, we can build all the parking lots in the world, but if you're going into town to park and there's no businesses, then why do we have a sustainable parking lot? I mean, it just doesn't add up to me. And then I also, one of the things that we did miss in forgive me, City Manager Newkirk, is the other piece is, it's one thing about giving our businesses a little bit of a fighting chance by offering this to them. But what I would like to do with the sustainability fund is choose an amount that's appropriate. Maybe we, and I don't want to use the word skim off the top, but let's pull back on maybe the building of the parking lot to make it a little less, it doesn't have to be a 5-star hotel. It could be a parking lot. And maybe we extend out the purchase of the vehicles that was planned, and we just extend it out a few more years. What I'd like to do is say that we earmark money for attraction. we are up against a very tough business right now. We're competing with all the towns around us. And for some reason, when businesses are looking to relocate, yes, they look at population, they look at traffic counts. We're doing okay with population. We're still not at 30,000. So, we lose a little on that. Traffic counts, we've got a lake, but how can we make ourselves more attractive? I'd like to be able to have a cushion, which we may never use, in which case it can all go back to sustainability of the environment. I'd like to say we take a portion of the money and we earmark it for if a business is thinking about locating here and they come to us and they say, I want to move to Highland Park. What can you do for me? Other towns are giving me X. We can say, well, we can give you Y and Z. So I wanted to earmark some money for attraction and not just retention. So that I am in favor of doing a little bit more and maybe calling the small business facade improvement program, small business facade improvement COVID plus for a period of maybe 12 to 18 months, not forever. And then also earmarking some funds for attraction and not necessarily giving it all to our current businesses.
Thank you. Councilwoman Stone.
Thank you. This is the Environmental Sustainability Fund that we're talking about. The fund uses revenue from recycling to fund environmental initiatives. Highland Park has been a leader on environmental leadership, in part because we have this fund. This has, environmental sustainability is an important goal, yet we spend very little money as a percentage of our budget on this. We have less than 10 years to make significant changes in order to address climate change if we're to avoid the worst impacts. And Highland Park has already felt some of the impacts of climate change. We've had increased flooding, bigger storms, more frequent storms, dramatic freezes and thaws in the middle of the winter that have caused pavement to buckle and water mains to break. We've had extreme heat in the summer. These are all climate change related. This fund has been used to pay the price difference to purchase more fuel efficient vehicles, which save the city money, permeable paving in city parking lots, which also leads to less maintenance in those parking lots, and sustainable consulting services to help reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, increase composting and recycling at businesses and multifamily buildings. These priorities have all been laid out in our sustainability plan. We have a robust sustainability plan, which has been updated fairly recently. And I think if we want to spend money to provide incentives to our businesses and for business attraction, which is a goal I definitely agree with, I think we should look at our business development budget, which is about 3 times the size of our sustainability budget, and see where we can cut. I know Councilman Noble just mentioned the Lake County Partners membership as a possible spot where there's some funding that might be available.
Not Lake County Partners. It's Visit Lake County.
Sorry.
I don't want to freak them out.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for correcting. Visit Lake County. There may be some other areas, if we all agree, and I think we do, that this is an important goal to retain businesses here in town and provide them some incentives given the situation. I think we need to look in our business development budget and see how we can support that. Thanks.
Councilman Bloomberg.
Thank you. I'm very much in favor of supporting the attraction of small businesses and doing what we can to help the businesses that are already here survive. But we also have to recognize that the retail climate was already significantly impacted by world events and modern life before the pandemic. I'm concerned about dipping into the Environmental Sustainability Fund because to me, it sort of flies in the face at what has been the centerpiece of what I think has been a really shining effort by this administration to move from a budget that was confusing, where you couldn't follow the money from where it went in to where it was being used in any kind of sensible way. The environmental fund is funded from sources that relate to environmental sustainability. I think it would be short-sighted to use that fund and completely appropriate to use funds, for instance, in terms of attraction, to use the SSA that is available for that purpose to attract businesses to come to Highland Park. I think using the general fund, which we are already dipping into in this unusual economic moment, is appropriate. What past administrations have done, which I would not support, is repeatedly dipping into that general fund year after year after we already know what we've got. We have a unique situation. I acknowledge that. I do want to help businesses. I do want to attract businesses, but I don't want to do that at the expense of what has been a particularly successful budget that we've even been able to balance with some very hard cuts that we're able to do because of the way the budget is constructed. And I don't feel that dipping into this fund for this purpose, which is not what this fund is intended for, is something that I'm comfortable with.
Let me be incredibly pointed in my comments. Our budget for 2021 currently has a 4% increase in sales tax revenue. If our businesses are not given the support that they need, that revenue will not be coming in. That's one thing. Another thing that I think is important to recognize, 27 FTEs have been cut from this budget since this past year. I so appreciate and of course support sustainability. Absolutely. But I gotta say, we are, and I don't mean to be alarmist, in a bit of a crisis right now. We're in a bit of a crisis in terms of where the revenue is going to come from. We're in a bit of a crisis in terms of maintaining the vibrancy of our downtown. And again, this isn't a Highland Park specific issue. This is everywhere. We talk about supporting local business. We talk about the importance of supporting our restaurants. People in this town at the beginning of the pandemic, I cannot get over the generosity, wrote checks to their favorite restaurants to keep them open. That says something about the importance of preserving, whether it's mental health, whether it's local business, call it what you will, these businesses. And I so agree. Believe me, I've walked through sewer water. I know about the flooding. I'm frustrated with the overheating. I've been supporting the butterflies and I've talked about the pollinators. But for one single year, I think it's really, really vital that we do what we need to do to support our community. And that's my point of view. Many hands are up. I see Councilman Stolberg, Councilman Kaufman, Councilman Holloman.
Thanks, Mayor. I completely understand where Councilman Stone is coming from. And just because we have a chunk of money in a fund doesn't mean that as a practice, because it's there, we juggle it and spend it. But you know, we've talked about a few things. Councilman Bloomberg, who I tremendously respect, the idea of taking money from the general fund for this. In going through the budget, Julie and her staff and Gita have done a really amazing job in a very difficult situation. But nonetheless, and I asked this when we met one-on-one, they've made some assumptions. And while those assumptions are calculated and make sense, what happens if the pandemic lasts an extra quarter or 2 quarters or 3 quarters, and our sales tax numbers are nowhere where they're projected to be, even in these reduced projections? You know, we've already gone from a historical average of 270, 274 FTEs to 250. Where do we have no more bullets left in the gun if, you know, if there's further fallout from this pandemic. So to take it from the general fund would concern me. As far as local businesses and the point of the sustainability fund, I don't want to make light of it. We are always a community that tries to lead by example and be leaders, not followers, and to be first. And I know Councilman Stone has worked very hard on all these sustainability measures, from bird-friendly glass to eco-friendly paving and everything in between, and for the long term. But I have to look at it as, if we've got a sustainability fund that's going to allow us to replace eco-friendly vehicles over 10 years, maybe we got to string that out 11 years and worry about this year. And maybe a truck that, you know, should be replaced in 9 years, maybe it gets replaced in 10 years, and we drive it a little bit longer and we put a little bit more money in our maintenance. But we talk about composting in vehicles and parking lots. I don't know too many bankrupt businesses that compost or you know, park in parking lots next to empty stores. So while I don't want to tax the sustainability fund, we absolutely have to help these small businesses today. And in saying that, maybe we can ask staff to go back. I heard Councilman Noble bring up an annual membership dues for $12,500. I know we talked about last meeting snow removal for $60,000. Maybe staff can look to some other low-hanging fruit in some of the other funds where maybe each fund takes a little bit of pain and we don't have to hit the sustainability fund in its entirety. But I am absolutely supportive of helping these local businesses, both current and attracting businesses here, because vacant stores don't generate any tax. They don't recycle. They don't put feet on the streets. You know, one of our core missions is community vibrancy. How do we maintain that? And, you know, like everything else we do when we revise budgets from council meeting to council meeting and amend certain budgets, you know, our budget for 2021 is going to have to live and breathe. We've made some very hopefully accurate assumptions, but nobody knows what the world's going to hold. And what do we do if it doesn't? So I would be in favor of this. I would hope that maybe we could find some other sources of available money that would not further stress our already very tight general fund. And maybe we could satisfy a little bit of everything by not solely hitting the environmental fund, but maybe a couple other places to help build up some opportunities for these businesses. So thank you.
Thank you. And as I am wont to say, it is all about a balance. It is all about striking a balance. And we've said repeatedly that our budget reflects our priorities. It's not that we aren't prioritizing sustainability, but we are prioritizing vibrancy. We are prioritizing several programs. We are also, and I have to say this, holding off on very important capital projects that need to be done. We're not putting people in danger, but we are stretching things out in terms of major spending and major programs. We have cut our staffing by 27 FTEs. These are difficult decisions that are already being made. And let me just put a finer point on this. The state of Illinois may not be giving us all the funding that we are counting on, as we have seen in the past. When the state has difficulties, they start to look at the cities for opportunities to cut back on their own spending. So I don't even know that we can presume that those revenues are a sure thing. And let me add one more point. We know that there are several agencies in this town who are counting on us for support. That's one of the major line items in this budget, are grants from us via Ravinia Festival that may not even come to pass if there's no Ravinia season next year. This is a horrible situation. It's very frustrating. The economics are not good. But at the same time, there are a couple of things that we can do potentially to help our local businesses, to help our neighbors, to help those entities that make us feel like we're still a little bit Highland Park. So I don't mean to sound all doom and gloom, but I just think it needs to be a balance when we look at what we have, when we look at where we're going, and when we look at what matters to us. I have Kaufman, Holloman, Bloomberg, and Noble in my lineup. Take it away, Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, look, I think we all share common ground of we all value, and I do certainly as well, attracting and retaining businesses. And it's critically important to our community for many reasons, not only for financial reasons, but also for community vibrancy. At the same time, our sustainability is important. And I think that's one thing that makes this difficult, not to mention that we're facing extreme circumstances, as you said, Mayor, financially because of the pandemic. And as Councilman Bloomberg noted, some difficulties that preceded the pandemic. So it's an ongoing long-term problem with businesses and the paradigm shift that we need to address in a holistic way. Now, in the short term, I would be in favor of, I know it's hard, but trying to find other sources of funds to support businesses with incentives.
Where?
You know, where?
Tell me where.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I asked staff to go back and look to see if we could make some, I want to know what we're going to give up, what the exchange would be. So I don't have it at my fingertips now, but I'm hoping that staff can provide us with some possible trade-offs. I'm concerned about taking it from the sustainability fund. I think it worries me, frankly, and I worry that it could become open the floodgates, a slippery slope, all those favorite arguments that we learned in law school, Mayor. And so I would be interested in hearing what the alternatives are. Maybe there's not a good alternative. Maybe we get back to the same place, but we all share the same goals in terms of we all value sustainability. We all value economic development incentives. There's no I mean, if there's disagreement there, then I'm off base, but I don't think there's any disagreement. There's just a question, where is the money going to come from? And we're short of money, so it's a problem. And we're not the only community facing this. But for my part, I'd love to see where else it could come from. Thanks.
So one thing I want to add, and this was an exercise that I requested of the city manager, was if the revenues fall short, by what amount would you need to find those revenues? Like if the sales tax revenue isn't where it's anticipated to be, how much money are we talking about? And so we all have had these budget conversations for months over the many years that we've worked together. And you know where the money comes from. It either comes from sales tax revenue, or it comes from enterprise funds, or it comes from property taxes. And the whole reason why we've been so focused on growing and developing and supporting our local economy has been to relieve the burden of property taxes off of the people that we represent. And so again, I urge you to think about how can we continue to assist in the generation of sales tax revenue, or we're going to have to go to a different place to find those funds to pay for our first responders, to pay for our bridge repairs, to pay for the things that are absolutes and not nice to have, but critical to the running of a municipality. And again, I don't mean to be so ardent and so strident, but I'm kind of concerned. And I want to know that this council shares my concern, because we are on the hook to pass a balanced budget. And if we don't have those sources coming from sales tax revenue, we're going to have to make some really brutal decisions. Next in the lineup, Councilman Holloman.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize. I echo just about everything you've said, and appreciate the opportunity to make the statement that we have to do everything we possibly can for business right now. I do not think it's an exaggeration to say that this is an incredibly critical time. We've been lucky with amazing weather and an incredible summer where our businesses have been able to take advantage of outdoor space and things like that. But we are facing a catastrophe for winter, and whatever we can do to support these businesses, which are having to make extraordinary investments in their own survival right now, we need to do. So Gita, you were looking for policy direction on, should we expand the program? Yes. Should we look at the sustainability fund to pay for that? Yes. Should we look at other funds to pay for it? Sure. But I think there's some magical thinking out there that we have some, other money we can find. We've already tapped down every single bit of money that we can find. So, I'm in favor of using this fund to do this. We have a full-time person who's paid by this fund. We're not talking about cutting that position, as far as I understand, right? This is money that there is still work going on from this fund that can continue. But things like having recycling programs for local restaurants don't really seem practical in an environment where we're losing our restaurants. So let's focus on what we can do right now to make sure that we keep our businesses viable. And whatever that entails, I'm 100% supportive of.
Thank you. Bloomberg, Noble, then Stone.
I want to limit my comments. First of all, Mayor, I completely appreciate the urgency that you've expressed, and I share that. In fact, I would go beyond that and say that my urgency about what are we going to do regarding retail sales tax goes beyond the pandemic, because we, like virtually every community of our size and type in the country, was already experiencing a diminution of retail sales tax as retailing has had to fight against the internet and other pressures. I get that entirely. I agree with you. We must do what we can to try to support businesses, but at the same time, we have to recognize that supporting small businesses may be futile in the long haul. I don't have an answer for that. I do agree at the moment that it is urgent to do so, and I completely accept that, and I completely support that. And I don't want it suggested that my comments earlier are that I do not support small business, or that I do not want to attract small business. I think restaurants in particular are going to be critical as the kind of thing that you can't get on the internet. They may become the backbone of the community. But like Councilman Kaufman and some of the other comments, I think Councilman Stolberg mentioned, I would at least like to take a moment and see if there are other funds or sources in which that burden can be shared in addition to or instead of the Environmental Sustainability Fund. That's my principal point. So I totally agree with the current need, and it is a need, to support whatever small businesses we can and to try to continue to generate or do what we can to increase the amount of retail sales tax and retail sales and vibrancy in the city that we can, understanding that that is within a larger context.
So I don't think anybody is intending to completely wipe out the sustainability fund. I'd be curious to know what that fund was 5 years ago and what was sufficient for an annual use of sustainable projects. And I just feel very strongly that, you can wish all day long for funding to come from somewhere else. I'm going to hazard a guess that our finance director and her staff have already sought to find other sources. But maybe there is something a stone that hasn't been overturned. Councilman Noble.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a whole bunch. I've been keeping a list. So thank you. Everybody's comments are well received and understood and appreciated. And I'm keeping a list of some of the things I'd like to address to make sure they're on the record and corrected. And some of the things I'm panicked. I was probably the first one out of the gate who was panicked over our businesses. When the pandemic hit and these businesses closed, I made a statement months ago. We are at a monumental time. Actually, we have the chance to reset and become who we wanted to be. So in some respects, this is a gift. We haven't seized the opportunity. This is our chance. So, I don't know who used the word, it's a futile effort. You could say that about our facade improvement grant, but it's not. Those businesses got a matching grant and they're still here, and I can start naming them. They're still here. We gave them a little something so they could divert their funds to something more important to run their business that's probably already on a razor thin margin. How do I know? I meet with these businesses daily. I speak to a business owner every single day. They tell me how they're struggling. I appreciate that we don't want to take it maybe from the sustainability fund, but to the mayor's point, and I think Councilman Stolberg said it, we all had one-on-one budget meeting. There is no other money. So I think someone said that we could take it from business development. I'm sitting here with the budget in my lap. There is no money left to take it from. They have one full-time staff person and a part-time staff person, and all that other money in that budget, the TIFs and the SSA are not our money. And if you wonder what they're doing, they're trying to generate business themselves. So they're already on task. So one of the things I always think to myself is when I approve something on our agenda, and it's to spend money, I go, if I spend this just the way I do in my home budget, what can't I buy? So if I can't redo my kitchen because I don't have the money, then I can't redo the kitchen. So I'll give you an example. I voted no on the sidewalk plowing in the last meeting for $60,000 because I'm sitting here going, and I'm not the only councilman who thought this, gee, is that the best use of our money during a pandemic when people could go out there and shovel? You can't buy what you can't have. Shoveling, people could do that. That's the same thing with some of this money is, and like I said, I came up with another $12,500 for something I think is a waste. We gave it a shot. It's not working to promote. I'd rather take the money and give it directly to the businesses as life support. Give them, as another mayor a little south of us, actually, that big city south of us said, give them a fighting chance to survive. And then, like I said, are we going to go spend the money necessarily from the sustainability fund? That's the only fund we had left that the staff told us where there's money. So I said, okay, fine, let's not spend it, but let's hold some of it as we create a better program to go, we've got money in our pocket. If there's a business that comes along and we want to attract it and we need to be competitive, if it doesn't happen in the next 12 to 18 months, the money goes right back to sustainability, no harm, no foul. But I'm looking at it going, where would we find the money otherwise? So like I said, everything we spend is a hard decision. This is a hard decision. But our businesses, the ones that are here, the ones that are like gasping for their last breath, doing what they can, and they are. If you go into these stores, they're having meetings, they're coordinating with each other. We can't say we're going to do something for them. Put our money where our mouth is. It's about time. And we've always been a leader. So I don't want to look at another town and go, what's Lake Forest doing or Deerfield doing? No, we're Highland Park. We are ready. We are open for business. We're a reset. We're good. We're talking to them every day. We're creating programs with them every day. Again, I don't necessarily, I value the environment. I mean, I spent 20 minutes of my one-on-one meeting talking about trees. So don't think that I don't care. I do. I just look at it and I go, without businesses, we're closed. We're a city with nothing. The birds and the bees are still going to be here in a year. Our businesses may not. So I don't want to step back and say, oh, I don't care about the environment. That's not it. It's just, this is the only place where we had some extra money. Like I said, no harm, no foul. If we take a certain percentage and we hold it back for attraction, and we take the 12.5 and maybe a little bit more and we give it for retention. And I feel like that's a reasonable deal. But again, there's nothing left in business development to take it from. It is bone dry. So thank you. And I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to preach or yell, but clearly this is I'm passionate about it. And I'm on the phone with the businesses who are crying every day. And we just lost another one on Central Avenue. So these spaces are real hard to fill. I don't know any other way to do it, but to help them and give them something as a lifeline.
Thank you. Councilwoman Stone.
Thank you. You mentioned the birds and the bees. The birds and the bees may or may not be here next year. They're in serious trouble and in serious decline. I agree with Councilman Bloomberg that there are challenges to retail that predate the pandemic. I agree with everyone that we should do what we can to support our businesses and to provide some incentives to them so that they can stay open. I would like to send this back to staff to have them look at where that money can come from. If we end up finding that the sustainability fund is the place to take these from, the environmental sustainability, if we take money from the environmental sustainability fund, if we spend it on something that is not within the mission of the fund, which is environmental sustainability, at least we should make it a loan to be repaid when we can do so in the future, perhaps from the sales tax revenue that we get from these businesses that stay. I know that that would be a couple of years. Maybe we're projecting, I think, a 2025 recovery of the economy, but at least we wouldn't then go down the slippery slope of taking money from a fund that's earmarked for certain purposes and spend it on some other purposes. I think we've been really good at segregating our money in that way over the years, and I'm concerned about the slippery slope and the precedent it sets by taking money to do something else.
Thank you. So I just want to state one point that may or may not have been clear to folks in our last conversation about the budget. And again, it's not my nature to be this strident, but I am beyond frustrated. And if you haven't had the chance, read through this thing all the way, line by line. So we have a policy that we don't spend down fund balance more than 10% per annum. Next year, I believe we're on track to spend about 13%, and the year after, about 14%. Those are 2 years in which we are breaking one of our cardinal rules because of the direness of this situation. And I will state again, my public service career started on the Environmental Commission. I am a dedicated greenie, but I got to tell you, I also am a fiscally responsible official, as I know every single one of you are. We need to do what we can to find the balance. We need to do what we can to support our economy. We need to do what we can to support our city. I don't think there's another fund. I can't imagine staff would just sort of go, well, yeah, maybe, I don't know, we'll get back to you. If you guys have a chance, read through that thing again. Tell me if you find some extra bucks lying around that we can help out our local businesses with. I'd be delighted. I'd be delighted to continue to keep sustainability on the front burner with all of those dollars. But I am curious, Geeta, at some point, if someone could find out for me 5 years ago what our sustainability fund was. Maybe you already know because you're that kind of a gal.
And Mayor, if I could, I just want to address just a couple of things just to make sure we're all on the same page, and especially for public information. So something that you said earlier, and I just want to reinforce it to the public. You know, when we put together a proposed budget, it is based on the council's policy priorities, the city's mission, numerous conversations that we have starting back in April in putting together the budget that is going to be posted to our website and that you have before you. A couple of things just for the public's information. For years, we have been delaying vehicle replacement, delaying capital projects. And so whereas one point in time that used to be something that, city managers could do working with department directors, we have far exceeded that. So just a couple of examples, the fuel station, which you did end up approving at the Public Works facility. I mean, we extended that to the point where the insurance company said, we're not going to insure you anymore for this fuel facility. So you either do it or you're going to go uninsured. We have a fire department emergency response vehicle that we have extended to the point that it can no longer be certified beyond a point. And so we are doing all those things that we can just to stretch the dollars to the greatest extent possible to make it work for the city. The Visit Lake County membership that Councilman Noble had brought up, she did raise it on our one-on-one budget meetings. We do have it marked as tentative in fiscal year 21. Certainly that is something that we can remove from the budget. But I do feel like we have tapped these resources unless we start taking a look at services and programs that we say, okay, we can take this away. We don't have to do this anymore, and that'll save this amount of dollars. Visit Lake County is 12.5. So we could not pursue that in 21, and then we would add that 12.5 to the budget right now for the facade improvement grant program. That's $15,000. So we would have that to work with in 2021. In fiscal year 20, we have about $12,000 remaining in the facade improvement grant program. So there are some funds in there, and we could move forward with $5,000 grants, which I do think are reasonable. Some communities are providing $10,000 grants. So I just want you to know, because we have a business, for example, that spent $40,000 on a tent. And so these enhancements that they're making are not cheap. And for a small business, it is a lot. So that's why they're looking for the greatest amount of support as possible. The other thing that I just wanted to mention, so the Sustainability Fund does staff 2 positions. They're both part-time positions. So one is the GRC Core. That's a match program through the Metro Mayor's Caucus. So we have a position that provides support on environmental issues. And then in the proposed budget, we are using part of the salary for the business development assistant to also come from the Environmental Sustainability Fund. And then what we're planning to do, just for public information as we go into, well, we're doing it now, but certainly as we continue in fiscal year 21, is we are looking at the city's finances on a regular basis, and formally on a monthly basis, our finance staff prepares a monthly financial report. It's posted on our website. And so we will continue to monitor our revenue and expenses. And if we find that our revenue are not meeting our projections, certainly in 2021, even in the first quarter, we will come back and we will say, we need to take a look at an amendment, and we'll be looking at capital projects and operational and everything else that we've looked at. We do feel that we are being fair and conservative in our estimates, but it's also making a number of assumptions in a time when we haven't been in the health pandemic in our careers. And then in response to the questions, so the balances in the Sustainability Fund, in 2013, we had a balance of $295,000. In 2015, we had $296,000. In 2020, we're anticipating ending with $432,000. So again, that's why we looked at that, is if there was a policy interest, that we could use it to support businesses during this challenging time for a finite period of time. To Councilman Kaufman's point, certainly like Visit Lake County, we can use those funds. We'll continue to always regularly explore if there's additional opportunities. So if the council is comfortable in terms of next steps, what we'll do is we'll put together a draft report and recommendation based on the feedback that we've heard this evening, and bring it to the next committee of the whole meeting where you can formally opine on it. And then I guess the last policy question I wanted to just make sure is 5,000 that right dollar amount per grant, or or do you want to look at a larger amount? And we are recommending a 50-50 match. So the businesses would have to match that expense as well.
Councilman Noble and then Councilman Bloomberg.
I think we've got to look at a little bit of a higher match. I know some towns are doing 10, 12, 5, 12, and I've heard 20 because I did some calling around. I'd like to go up a little bit. I understand that some of the businesses, and I wanted to make one point is, I don't want to give them money retroactively. A lot of our businesses have already purchased their tents, their heaters, whatever, what have you. This is for things like to get them through the winter as they try to get propane tanks. Maybe they need signage for their outdoors. I've already heard from some of our restaurants that they're going to need it. So, are they going to end up needing to go to 10,000? Maybe not. But again, I just want to emphasize, I'd like to figure out a way to go, sure, maybe we go up to 8. We give them a little bit more. Again, it is a cost sharing. This is from talking directly with some of them over the last few days. But again, and they're interested in attraction. I would like to say we also reserve. That's why I don't want to say, let's go to 10. Let's go. How many businesses do we think are doing anything for the winter? I know we've got Norton's and Michael's and Ravinia Brewing. And I mean, I could go on and on with, we don't have that many. Some of them are going to delivery only for the winter. There are some retailers that are going to be closing their stores, but need signage outside, that kind of thing. So do I think they're going to need that much? Only the guys who need propane tanks or signage. But what I'd like to do is make sure that we, like I said, no harm, no foul on the sustainability fund is we set aside an amount. So if a business comes along and we have to immediately say, yep, we can jump on it, that we've got money in our pocket to do that. So yes, to your question is I'd like to go up a little more than 5,000 if we can afford to, based on how many businesses have submitted the plans to do something. We may get 1 or 2 more that haven't submitted plans yet, but I don't think so. We've been talking. You guys, Gita, I give you and the staff great credit. You've been doing a stellar job at outreach saying, give us your plan, give us your plan, give us your plan. You don't have one right now, you're really in trouble. You can't get a tent or a propane or a heater. So I think what we're going to see is just the need to do some smaller improvements or just to sustain them over the next, it'll be 4 or 5 months of cold. So if we can go up a little bit, but again, I really, really want to make sure we think about the attraction as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Bloomberg.
What she said, I agree with going up a little bit. I think that's a good idea if we can do that. B, to the extent that some of this, what Councilman Noble was just talking about is a direct expense for the business owner. But some of what we've talked about has to do with facade improvement and the potential to assist with interior improvements. And the thing that's always struck me about that, even though we do this as a matching program with the business owner, the improvement is really being made to the building, which the business owner has no permanent interest in if they're leasing their space. And so my question is, can we add some strength to this and some money to this if we look to the landlord, who is also benefiting from the fact that the business owner is being sustained and the landlord's building is being improved? I'm not sure how that's done, but it's something that seems to me ought to be considered.
Great point. Thank you. Councilman Noble.
Thanks, Councilman Bloomberg. One of the things, and maybe I'm thinking it in my head and it hasn't come out of my mouth with everything else, sorry, is this is not just about changes to the building, which is the facade improvement part, but when I had said facade improvement plus COVID related, so you keep hearing me say propane tanks or signage, that stuff's not permanent. That's actually, it's a consumable product. That these guys could be using it for that. Some of these guys did not get PPP loans or didn't get the amount they needed to keep their staff on. So if we were helping them pay for, let's say, the gas, they could then keep their staff on, that kind of thing. So, and only for a short time. I do not mean for this to go on an eternity. I mean, this is a 12-month gig where we add the plus, and I'm making this up. It's a marketing thing. Like, hey, it's facade improvement plus COVID for 12 months. And we give them very set rules so we don't get every idea under the sun. The staff has some predictability. If they say they want to apply, they apply and they go, oh, it's for these 5 things, not, they wanted to put in a chandelier suddenly. Does that make sense?
It certainly does to me. I agreed with you and I understood your comments to mean that. What I also understood was that some of this money, while it's going to be used for disposable things like propane tanks and wintertime improvements, has also in the past, and I would assume going forward, would be available for facade improvements. It may be that we need to put in special kinds of doors because there is going to be some indoor activity that's permitted under state law. There is going to be some interior improvement that we have talked about wanting to help with. And I think that the landlords, if it can be done, ought to be also invested in that, because having an active business, that's what they want. That's what's critical. A lot of landlords are doing that in Highland Park. I see some landlords that are particularly attuned to helping their tenants survive and doing what they can to make the business attractive and accessible. There are other landlords, maybe not so much. I'd like to see everybody get invested in that and strengthen the amount of money that the city is going to give wherever it comes from, to expand the amount of available money to make these businesses as successful as they can possibly be during this time.
I agree with you on that. And Gita, maybe we can call a POA meeting and have that conversation with them if this passes, that we brief them on and how we're partnering and what we expect of them. I spoke to Lilia and to Dino today, and they're very open for discussion, but I think maybe that's something we need to do. Thank you, Councilman Bloomberg. Sorry, I have to stop talking.
Not at all. Thank you. Councilman Holloman.
Yeah, I just want to point out that in a lot of leases, when you, even if it's an improvement to a property, those need to be undone when a business leaves, right? They have to clear out everything. So these are not necessarily permanent improvements to the facades for the purpose of a lease. So I'm a little concerned about, I want the landlords to chip in whatever they can. That'd be great. And I think some of them have, in terms of, rent forgiveness and things like that. But anyway, I would go to 10. I just want to throw a number out there. I think we need to move this conversation along in terms of, everybody wants to do something for business. Let's raise it to 10, and, like Councilman Noble said, give them some guidelines and help these businesses try and get through winter. I think that's what has to be our priority right now.
Thank you. So it looks like there are 4 in support. There are 3 who are, and I'll add my name to the 3, who would love to find funds elsewhere, if that's feasible, if there's something that we haven't been able to identify, and have a better understanding of the need to go to use some of the sustainability dollars versus other dollars. I think, again, I'm going to assume staff has looked under every stone and every rock, no pun intended, Kim. But I do want us to see if there's something else that we can do. And if not, I agree with the 10. Adam, I'm going to ask you what your thoughts are, because you're one of the 4. And Dan and Tony and Kim, happy to get your input, but recognize where you are in terms of using any sustainability dollars.
I agree. I think I started 45 minutes ago saying if there's other places to find money, great, but I think our staff has done a really good job. Mayor, I know last meeting we approved an expense not to exceed $60,000 for snow. And I know it was a close vote, and I don't even know if it's appropriate to bring it back up again. But, in my mind, snow is variable. We may not spend all of it. Maybe there's a balance here to shift money from snow to business. And in the event that we spend $30,000, maybe we hit the sustainability fund for some of that difference. I'm just trying to get, creative when we don't have endless money to pull from, and we have multiple needs that are all very, very important and real and immediate. So I'm definitely in favor of this. Of course, if there's other sources of funding, I spent a lot of time with Gita and Julie on several things on the budget, including the discussion of what if the 2021 assumptions are not met? Where do we go from there? Where else can we pull? Where else can we cut? What, crucial services are we risking that we can never do? And we don't have control of that. We don't know what this world's going to be in 3 or 6 or 9 or 12 months. So I think we have to do everything we can to help our businesses. If the sustainability fund is a source, it's not a dip into it at all costs all the time. But, you know, as everybody has mentioned, the importance of all these things, I think the one word that comes to my mind is prioritize. And to me, the single biggest priority right now is keeping, it's just a snowball effect. When the businesses go, the taxes go. When the taxes go and the businesses go, the people go, the vibrancy goes. So to me, the businesses are absolutely a top priority right now.
Thank you. Councilwoman Stone.
Thanks. I had mentioned before the possibility of making this more of a loan than an expenditure from the sustainability fund. I don't know if that's something that people are open to, if there's no other source of funding. But if we're looking for cash now and there's cash in that fund, can we loan it to business development and then have it paid back with that increased sales tax revenue a few years down the line?
Well, and Mayor, that's kind of what I was saying. If we allocated $60,000 for snow and we have a mild winter, sorry, no pun intended to the sustainability, but if global warming keeps us, you know, with a little less snow, maybe we don't spend 60 and we spend 40 and we can pay back that sustainability to $20,000.
Or we cancel that contract and rethink the snow.
That's always an option if, you know, I would be fine with that, Michelle.
And I don't think we've heard what the total amount of money is that we need for this either.
We haven't done that analysis yet. We just wanted to get policy feedback this evening, and then we will bring that forward at the next council meeting.
So it sounds like there's some further info that's needed, both in terms of a pro forma potential going forward, whether other funds exist per Councilman Kaufman's request and Councilman Bloomberg's request. And I think there are a number of unanswered questions that have been posed pretty much by everybody. So let's circle back at our next committee of the whole. And if you think of any other questions, please forward them to Gita and Julie, and we'll see where this goes. And thank you to those who raised this as an option to be considered. Much appreciated.
And if I could ask, again, because we're really down to just programs and services. So if the council is interested in, hey, I'm not interested in doing this service anymore because I think business is more important, that feedback is very helpful. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So moving along, we have our department budget presentations as discussed. This is a streamlined budget presentation because, again, we've been talking about budget since April, May of earlier this year. We have the departments going in alphabetical order by the department. I have a PowerPoint that's going to guide the presentation. This PowerPoint was shared with the City Council. In consideration of time, if you want, we could just go to questions. Or we can run through the presentation. So whatever the pleasure of the council is.
I'm thinking we go to questions unless others are in need of a presentation, but I suspect you've had one-on-one conversations concerning the budget. I know this is a group that takes its work seriously and has no doubt looked through everything that's been forwarded to them, unless people are in need of a presentation. Anybody? I mean, I don't want to diminish the hard work of our staff in putting these presentations together. Ramesh is looking heartbroken once again, but just curious to know what people's thoughts are. Councilman Bloomberg.
I don't really need a presentation. I don't have a lot of questions. One of the things that has happened over the period of time that we've moved to the current budget form that we have is it's much easier to understand, even for somebody like me who doesn't read budgets a lot. The process of having the one-on-one meetings with the mayor and Ms. Logan have been enormously successful for me in terms of understanding how the budget as a whole works and the ability to understand each departmental budget. I don't really need a presentation. There's a lot of detail in there. It's very easy to see what comes in, from where it comes, what aspect of the total budget each department is constituted of, and how it spends its money, which satisfies the responsibilities that I think we have in making sure that our budget is responsible and meets the needs of residents as well as being fully accountable to us.
Mayor, there's just a couple of things if I could bring to the council's attention, just to make sure we're all on the same page and get your policy feedback. So we do have listed as tentative the Visit Lake County membership. We listed that as tentative because we are awaiting some feedback from them in fiscal year 21, which we're anticipated to receive in the first quarter as it pertains to would our membership be able to also include promotion of our restaurants and retailers. They had not done that before. That was one thing that we expressed a concern about. So based on the discussion this evening and the interest in the grant program, we will not proceed with membership in Visit Lake County in 21 and apply that $12,500 towards the grant program. So just want to make sure council is comfortable with that. We also have in there in the budget $300,000 that would be given as a grant, if you will, to the Highland Park Community Foundation. We have an agreement with the foundation where they are our partner in distributing grant funds to health, human service, social service agencies serving the Highland Park area. That amount of money is determined a couple of different ways. One, $250,000 would be provided from revenue that we receive from Ravinia Festival. And then $50,000 was the grant funds that we had historically included from a combination of the Cultural Arts Advisory Group and the Human Relations Group, where they did their own grant funds. So as you may recall, we pooled all that funding together and provided it to the Community Foundation, which we believe are the experts in grant giving, and they do an outstanding job in evaluation of the agencies that they provide funding to. So those funds would be conditioned on, again, having the revenue to be able to provide those. So we will, before those funds are dispersed to them, we will come back to the city council and report to you and make sure that everyone is comfortable, again, just making sure that we have the revenue sources coming in.
Have we communicated with them that that money is absolutely 100% conditional on Ravinia having a season and having the funds generated by Ravinia? And again, it in no way diminishes the importance of the agencies that they are supporting. Obviously, they are incredibly important to our community, but we've just gnashed our teeth for an hour over our lack of dollars, and $250,000 is significant. And if we don't have that coming from Ravinia, I don't want the Community Foundation to be making plans and promises based on dollars that we can't provide.
We have, and we definitely will again. So as you know, we reduced that funding this year because we had to look at $10 million worth of cuts in our fiscal year 20 budget because of the impact that COVID had. So we reduced that amount to $50,000 this year. We will follow up with their executive director again tomorrow, just to reiterate that so it is clear.
Okay, Councilman Noble.
I have said that at every meeting because it comes up quite often, and they knew this year they made everybody whole. They dipped into their endowment a little bit. They are very clear where that money comes from. They even joke about it. Haha, not funny. It would be funny if it wasn't funny. They understand. They always say, "Oh, if Ravinia comes back, if Ravinia has a season, if we can get Ravinia if we can sit on the lawn again." They totally joke about it. They know. They're hoping that 50,000 still comes to them, and they were appreciative of it this year, and that's our way of being a partner with all our not-for-profits that we use instead of hiring individual people. But they are very, very well aware of it. I mean, I appreciate that we'll call Terry, tomorrow and reminder, but they very much know our budget and what we've been cutting and how we've been doing it, and they appreciate our partnership with them very much. They're pretty keen on it.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, can I just add to that was one of the reasons that we wanted them as an agency, right? That they have an endowment that they can sustain long term and kind of fill in the gaps for us when situations like this can't. So I want to commend them for the good work that they've done.
Absolutely, thank you.
And
Councilman Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor. And Gita, you might have mentioned this at the outset, and forgive me if I missed it, but one thing about the budget process, in terms of our foregoing the formal presentations tonight, in addition to our being able to read the massive draft budget and have these one-on-one meetings, is that and staff is prepared to send to us a comprehensive Q&A to address the questions that we raised. And so I just, that would, if it hasn't been mentioned, I thought it'd be worth mentioning so public understands the process. It's kind of an ongoing process that we're engaged in. That doesn't end with those one-on-one meetings or tonight at all. So it's a pretty comprehensive, ongoing, fluid process.
Thank you, Councilman Kaufman.
Thank you.
The other line item is the funding request for sister cities. So we have 5,000 reflected in the budget. They did ask for, I believe, Rob, 8,000.
Correct. Yes.
That's 5,000. So just want to make sure, again, the council is comfortable with that in light of all of the priorities.
What do people think? I'm not sure what they're doing at this point. We're all sort of trapped not being sister cities. And I know a significant portion of what that funding goes to has been humanitarian efforts in Mexico and other programming that may be on pause right now. I cannot remember. Michelle, are you the liaison? Who's the liaison to sister cities?
I am not.
Okay.
I was
Dan.
previously. I am not longer.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. Councilman Kaufman.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I don't have the detail at this point. I do, as supportive as I am of it, though, and the cause, I do wonder in this pandemic world that it could be, the budget could be more aligned with what actually could be done in this world these days for this year, this coming year. In terms of, there's not the same, obviously, expenses that can possibly be incurred, I don't think.
I agree. Any other thoughts on that line item?
I agree with both of what's been said here. That we need to look at that and see what can be done and whether that can be reduced.
Thanks. Anybody else? Okay. Continuing onward.
So for public information, we will take this PowerPoint. I know we've been talking about a PowerPoint. We'll post that to the website so the public can take a look at all the department highlights, and certainly they're welcome to contact us if they have any questions. And then I think Councilman Holloman has her hand up, unless that was from before.
Councilman Holloman, do you have your hand up?
No, that was from before.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well,
Yeah,
thank you to our amazing senior staff and their crews, as always. Thank you for the incredible amount of time and thought that's gone into your presentations and this budget. Boy, certainly a challenge, very interesting, and appreciate all that you've achieved, given the challenges that we're all facing right now. Anything else for the open portion of Committee of the Whole? Nope. Okay. I'm seeking a motion to go into closed session.
Mayor, I would move to go into closed session to discuss pending litigation and to approve closed session minutes pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C11 and 21 respectively.
Second.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilman Stolberg,
Aye.
Councilwoman Stone,
Aye.
Councilman Kaufman,
Aye.
Councilman Bloomberg,
Aye.
Councilman Noble,
Aye.
Councilman Holloman,
Aye.
Mayor Rotary.
Aye. 7 ayes, no nays. We will go into closed session. Do people need a 5-minute break before we go into closed session? Anyone? Nope. We're good. Press on. All righty. See you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Rob, I changed it over to you, right?
Hey, Rob, I am hereby ending the committee of the whole. There's been a motion and a second to adjourn.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mayor. Ending the
Thanks.
meeting now.
All right, thanks so much. Take care.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.